Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 189. I think we're live, but I didn't get the thing saying we're live. Oh yeah, that did. But I got the notice again saying that Hangouts is going away August 1st. So we gotta address that, Josh.
Yeah, we'll have to troubleshoot something.
But until then,
we're not supposed to be on till August 1st, are we?
No, that's a little different. Yeah, but the platform we're using, Google Hangouts, is going away, so we've got to find another way to do these shows. So anyway, Artcasters 189. This is going to be an awesome show. We are kind of going to be looking back at Mad Magazine. I know Josh and myself are hugely inspired by Mad Magazine. So I reached out to an old friend of mine who you'll get to meet in a minute. Because he was an art director at MAD, he was a writer at MAD, as well as a bunch of other cool positions at another bunch of cool companies. So we'll meet Jonathan in a minute. Before then, I guess we'll just go around. I don't really have anything to promote other than the Comic Maker Starter Kit at my website. If you go to circworks.com, if you want to create comics, I have a free digital toolkit that'll allow you to do so. It's got brushes, it's got fonts, it's got all that cool stuff. Just go there, you can download that and sign up for the mailing list, and along with that, you get a bunch of other cool stuff. So that's everything I got to say. What about you, Josh? What's going on in your world?
Okay, before you get to me, just how much was that starter kit?
It is absolutely free.
Unbelievable. That's crazy. You've lost your mind selling that thing for free. That is a cool pack. So you can find my work at quarterlystories.com, where you can read very unmarketable autobiography comics and yeah, about faith and mental illness. And then you can also check out more of my commercial work and stuff at joshuakemble.com. All kind of leads to the same place. So yeah, that's it for me.
Awesome. And like I alluded to, we've got Jonathan Schneider, who was writer, art director at MAD. I wanted to kind of go into just some of the things that what an influence MAD had on me, and I'm sure Josh as well. But I mean, I have a feeling. I mean, a lot of it's just going to be you regaling us with stories, because we've only got like an hour and a half, and I'm sure there's so much we want to talk about. So why don't you introduce yourself, Jonathan?
Oh, okay. I'm Jonathan Schneider. I was first I was a writer for MAD starting in the late '80s, and then became a designer for them because I knew the computer and they were just getting started with that. And then became art director when Lonnie Brenner retired till late '90s. Then I got Pokemon. I was the lead art director for marketing on Pokemon for Western Publishing. That was a hell of a lot of fun.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic.
No, I'm not. You know, when I left MAD, because I used to give copies of MADs to the kids on my block in Brooklyn. And, so I switched, and they came up to me, hi, mister, can we have MADs? And I said, I'm not with MAD anymore. I said, you guys ever hear of Pokemon? And I gave them like a bunch of stickers and stuff. I've never seen 10-year-olds have orgasms.
Yeah, my kids are huge. They still are. My kids are still into Pokemon.
I know.
At least my oldest is. Yeah.
So between MAD and Pokemon, I destroyed at least a generation of mine.
Doing a job well done.
Thank you.
So I know for me, I mean, I was first introduced to Mad Magazine by my dad, who read it as a kid.
Child abuse.
Yes. Well, it's so crazy, because looking at it, there's like stuff like, should I really be reading this? But my dad like introduced me to it, and I forgot how he presented it, but it was just like instantly I was just like,
in a blank brown paper wrapper.
Yeah, exactly. But he read it as a kid, so I assume that before you worked for MAD, you were probably a fan as well.
Oh yeah. I lived very close to several of the MAD guys, Dave Berg, Jack Davis. There's one other guy, I can't remember his name. And then, of course, since I was in New York, I used to be able to go up to the office and hang out there. So I was very familiar with a lot of MAD people long before I worked with them.
When you say go in the office, you could just go there and hang out, or?
Yes, you could go in, and the receptionist who was there for like 50 years, Lillian,
Is she the one from the Simpsons episode that they're?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry they missed her. Lovely lady. And you just say, it was like in The Simpsons when Bart says, can I, Mad Magazine, I want to, see things.
Yeah.
And they just let you in.
Yeah.
And you could walk around. They would invite you to look at their original art files. Go look at the art, talk to the people. The famous story was, as I passed Bill Gaines' office, his door, I looked in because he had the big King Kong in the window and just tons of stuff. And he looked up and he goes, "We'll either come in or get the F out." I spent the rest of the day with him in his office, and he'd be like, "What do you think of this? What do you think of this? Kid doesn't like it." It was the greatest moment of my life.
That's awesome. I hear those same stories about Jack Kirby, that he was just like, just bring people in his world or over his house, and his wife would make him sandwiches and all this stuff. So
I never got a sandwich, but I did speak to him once. Not at his house. It was some bar.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Very nice man. Very nice man.
So Josh, what about you? What was your sort of introduction to Mad?
So I got into it a little later because I got really into Kurtzman and just was obsessed with his early war comics and stuff, and I just thought the ink work was so cool, and then just Mad just kind of blew my mind when I came across it. And I think my earliest interest in it was just Spy versus Spy, because it was so cool how it was just completely silent. And
that's what I started writing for Mad.
Oh, nice.
I had a knack for it, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just it's a really challenging. The more I've gotten into cartooning, the more I've realized that's a real challenge to write, because to tell something in mime is just it's super difficult.
We can do the rest of the show in mime.
Nice. I love it. That's true. It'd be a lot more interesting if we all if we were in black and white and we had bombs and cool trench coats and stuff. But
the FBI will be calling you later for that one.
That's a fair point. And then of course, I just Sergio Aragonés's work and just his personality, just reading interviews with him, it went beyond just his cartooning to just that's when I was pretty hooked, and from that point on, Mad was just kind of my jam. But it just seemed like a natural progression at the age I found it, because it was right after I got into Monty Python, and I was like, okay, these are this is my people. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah.
There's a famous story about Kurtzman, who was actually my former teacher at SVA.
It's amazing.
And also an employer, I guess what could call it, because he bought some of my gags, that they met the Monty Python guys in England. And as the story goes, I think it was Michael Palin. They were at his house, and he had all these loaves of freshly baked bread there. And he asked what they thought of Monty Python. And I forgot who it was who said, "Well, I like it, but you never end anything. You just blow things up." And the story goes that Palin had a fit, balled up all the bread and threw it against the wall. Just a story. I don't know.
That's good.
So I was kind of going through I got stacks of these, but I found this. I thought, so just to kind of give you an idea of the influence, this is my version of Mad Magazine that I drew as a kid, probably around 11. It was called Crazed. And of course I had my version of Alfred E. Newman, which was I guess he was a little burglar guy. I don't know. But just looking at it, it's just a total ripoff of Mad. Of course, that's what we all do as kids. But I had this thing called Cops and Robbers, which is basically my Spy versus Spy.
But you won't be hearing from Mad's lawyers now. So.
This is a crazed look at elevators, which is obviously, was it Sergio Aragonés that did those? I know he did all the articles and stuff, but yeah. So, and you can even look, I mean, it's hard to see because I used to draw so light, but there's a guy here, it just looks, you could tell he's totally ripped off from Sergio.
You know, I used to draw like Don Martin when I was.
Yeah, I'll show you some of that too. So
there you go.
Where is it? But yeah, I mean, I just dug this. I mean, I just ate all this stuff up. But yeah, here's a little Spider-Man that's pretty much Don Martin Spider-Man.
You're hired.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
you left. No, Aaron.
But it was a huge influence on me, and even like I mean, for a while I was doing caricatures, but I didn't like. A lot of people were doing like the caricatures at like, you know, you would see them at like SeaWorld or whatever, doing like just the, you know, people come by and get those caricatures. But the thing I didn't like about those is they didn't have all the, you know, if you look at, you know, if you look at some of the, you know, work like Jack Davis and everything, there were so many little tiny things that were in there that were just, I mean, you could just read that stuff over and over again and not see all the little jokes and gags. So I would do, you know, I did a lot of like,
that was the Harvey and Will Elder were really into it.
Yeah.
That's what I worked on, doing the little sight gags behind Annie Fanny and Playboy for him.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
$10 a shot.
So
bastard owed me $50.
So you get hired as a writer on Mad, and then, you know, eventually you said you kind of worked your way up to art director position and everything.
I more or less fell into it Forrest Gump style.
Okay. But you said you had mentioned that you were sort of a student of Harvey Kurtzman.
Harvey Kurtzman was a teacher of mine at SVA. Also, Will Eisner was a teacher.
Awesome.
In fact, I worked in his studio one summer. I had a lot of great teachers there. Spiegelman, who I missed most of his classes. I met R. Crumb through Harvey.
It's just like a who's who of yeah, man, it's amazing.
It was the right time to go to SVA. I mean, there were a lot of really influential cartoonists teaching there at the time.
That's so you had brought up a few. I mean, you had brought up a few topics and things that you wanted to touch on, and there's the
sexual ones.
Yes. So the one that stuck out to me was, you know, artists who applied for Mad, and you had mentioned some of the worst ones. So I'm curious about that.
I was fairly, you know, as a freelance illustrator cartoonist in New York, most people have drop-off policies. You take your portfolio, you drop it off in the morning, you pick it up in the afternoon.
I remember those days.
Sometimes you have a Xerox note, thank you, we'll let you know if we blah, 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 blah. I always had a once a month, come and see me personally. It was like, you know, third Thursday of the month from 2 to 4. And they came to see me. Boy, they came to see me. It was interesting. My favorite story, though, was this guy who calls me up, and right off the bat, and I answered my phone, which is always a mistake. Never answer your phone. And he starts cursing out the magazine. What a piece of crap it is, blah, 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 blah. So he's decided it's time for him to come up to the magazine and save it. So I said, well, okay, you know, I have this go-see day, and he's like, I don't want to wait that long. I need to get to work right away. Yada, yada, yada. The guy's bothering the receptionist every day. Am I in? Can he come over? She's reminding him. So finally I see the guy in a suit that's probably 3 sizes too small for him. Completely made of denim, so that, you know, made it worse.
When was this? Like,
this was 95, 96. You know, I took a lot of drugs to try to forget it. So I said, okay, well, let's take a look at your stuff. And we had a little coffee table and chairs out in the lobby. And he goes, what, you don't got an office? I said, yeah, I do, but you're not getting into it. So he spills out this hodgepodge of scribbles and cocktail napkins, and I kept looking at things going, okay, that's a Far Side joke, okay, that's a, you know, and he's going, oh, you recognize that? And I'm like, yeah. So anyway, I just said, well, you know, I think you got to work on it a little more. And he's, but I'm good, you know, what do you do when you find someone who's good? You hire them. I said, well, you know, you're not good enough, but you got to keep working on it. And oh, he was just so pissed off. It was, I can laugh about it now, but at the time it was just like, oh my God, I'm going to be murdered right here. But, you know, I got my share of letters from kids who wanted to do artwork for the magazine and try to convince their teachers that it could be homework for them. People who, they weren't artists, but they wanted to do, their dream was the cover of Mad magazine. It just, you know, we found some good people that way. I mean, but most of them were frightening people.
Yeah. So
I actually had a guy, I was at a funeral for a guy from DC.
Okay.
And a guy wants to show me his portfolio at the funeral. And he opens it up and he's starting to look for a place to put it. And he's looking at the guy's coffin. And I went, don't you fucking dare.
Oh, gosh.
Anyway.
So I think that gives a good window as to why that, like, you know, because we have a lot of people who are like kind of aspiring illustrators or cartoonists, like kind of listen in on this. And I think that's a good example of like why there are gatekeepers, like for people at positions like that. Because I mean, imagine if there's no reception, if there's no like slush pile or thing to kind of mitigate that kind of thing, it's like you would never be able to actually do your job, you know?
We used to give tours of Mad. One of the editorial assistants people would show up and say, can we get a tour? And they would give them a tour. This one guy jumped off the tour into my office and opened his portfolio. Just sat down, put it on my desk. I said, okay, you know.
Yeah, you gotta, you know, kind of recognize when somebody's that bold to do something like that.
I figured, okay, no problem. You know, it's, I don't know. It's very funny. And to people who are just starting out, I would give some advice. Because I started as an illustrator cartoonist. And I couldn't figure out why I wasn't getting into certain publications. And when I became the art director at Mad, which was owned by DC Comics, which was owned by Time Warner, which was owned by Warner Brothers or something that now they're owned by AT&T. So they're the people to thank for taking Mad out.
Oh, yeah.
I was invited to an art director of Time Warner. They had art director dinners with all the people who I was trying to reach for all those years. And they were like, yeah, I was familiar with your work. And basically what they said is, it's so hard, and I agree with this, to try new talent, because if they screw up, it's your head.
Right.
And I had plenty of people who I gave chances to who screwed up royally.
Yeah,
and I took the heat for it.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame because it's like, yeah, but I get it, because I mean, just in hiring people for certain projects, I mean, there's people that really like their work, but you know, if I hire somebody to work with me, I kind of have to know that they're going to do a good job, or I know a little more than just how great their artwork is. So I get it. And I'm not even like an art director or anything like that, but
there are guys who are household names, and I hated working with them. They're always late. Their work was just dirty, filthy, and I had to clean it up. And it's tough. I mean, when the new Mad came out, we gave a chance to this new guy who liked his portfolio. The art came in, it looked nothing like his portfolio. It was just...
Yeah, I mean, I know if I was applying for Mad and if I got my chance, I mean, it would be like the best work I'd ever done. I mean, I was just, it's like, you know, how do you mess that up? So...
Well, some people can't help themselves.
Yeah.
They're their own worst enemies, really. I had this one intern who I hired, and he screwed up so badly on his first day, I had to walk him out. He was in tears.
Oh, wow.
Imagine like telling everyone, I started Mad Magazine tomorrow. They're like, hey, how's Mad? I got fired, you know.
Wow, that's pretty tough. You know, anytime I like it, but it's weird because usually the first day of any job I've had, like when I had my first day at the game company, they had me doing these isometric games. And I was like, I don't know if I can figure this out. I mean, it was just a totally different style of drawing. it was mostly drawing these buildings for the city builder game. And I'm like, I'm not going to last 2 days here. Then it starts to click, and before you know it, it's like, oh, yeah, it's just second nature. So yeah, I don't know. This guy must have been really bad.
He just didn't listen to what he was told.
Okay. So who was still there? Because I know a lot of the big time mad artists even some of the people that started were still working there throughout its run and everything. So who was still there that was when you were kind of working?
Oh, when I was there,
yeah.
They all were there actually.
Really? Wow.
Proheus he hadn't died, but he stopped drawing. Don Martin, of course, was gone. But
he left to go to Cracked, right? Didn't he?
Yeah, he went to Cracked. That didn't quite work out. Then I think he went to Marvel to do something. That didn't quite work out. And it was a sad story in the end. He died of cancer. Was fighting with everybody. But, Mad had they bought all rights. And the feeling behind that was if someone writes your cartoon, you can't really own it because you're going to be making money from it. You got to pay the writer also, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a comic book industry, and work for hire was.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I've been there, but it's interesting because when you said you wrote Spy versus Spy, I would just assume that all the name, all the people that had their own characters or their own running titles or whatever. What would you call the different? If they're not properties, if Matt owns them all, but what would you call those? Just like Spy versus Spy, or like the lighter side of
departments.
Yeah, so I just assumed they were all written by whoever's name was on the byline.
Proheus did write his own stuff. I'm trying to think who took over from. I know Bob Clark did the Spies. George Woodbridge did the Spies. Dave Manick, I think, was one of the best. And I worked really with him writing them. So if you look back, it'll say like M and S, and that's us.
Oh, cool.
And then when they did the new Mad in 1996, Peter Cooper took over. Hard to believe he's been doing that for like 23 years.
So what was the new Mad? And how many? Because I know recently, before they announced that they were going to, that they're just recent announcement that they're just going to stop publishing any new material. I know that they relaunched it because I think I just bought either bought the final issue before, and then there was an issue 1, but that wasn't that long ago. So they
relaunched about 2 years ago when they moved the operation to Bergen.
Yeah. So what was the new Mad? You want to?
Okay, well, the new Mad. Well, remember in Mad's history, it was a comic book, and then it was a magazine.
Right. Now it was only a comic for what, like around a year or so,
about
13 issues or so.
Not just about a year, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
What issue? When I was made art director in, I guess it was 95. I was hired by Joe Orlando, who is the VP executive publisher at the time. And, I got hired. He's like, oh, and by the way, we're going to go from 8 issues a year to 12 issues a year. And instead of 4 super specials, we're going to do 16 super specials. And I was like, great,
Oh, man.
Why me? I worry. And then they told me about Project X. Project X was the brainchild of some DC executive who decided that Mad needed to get edgier. But not just edgier, it needed to switch directions and become an urban hip-hop humor magazine.
Okay.
You've got a bunch of 60 to 80-something-year-olds, white men, doing this stuff. How do you do that?
Right.
Yeah.
So there was this whole struggle between this executive and the staff, and I should have given you a link to the New York One announcement, the press announcement. The first issue, I don't remember, 96, it was Alfred Xeroxing his butt. And there was this yellow border that ran around the magazine, which I take no responsibility for. And it was this big hullabaloo with all this PR. And you know something? There was nothing different about it.
Well, I would say that Mad has always been fairly edgy, you know. So I don't know what exactly, other than this strange direction to make it more of a hip hop, you know.
We just all thought, what the hell is this? But the thing with Mad and what we're seeing now and what's happening, the nostalgia reader was always a very big part of the Mad reader.
Right.
You grew up with it. You still wanted to read it. You want to introduce it to your kids, like your father.
Yeah.
I gave my kids, Mads. But the more you would get away from the way the magazine had traditionally looked, the artists, the departments, you started to lose the nostalgia readers.
Right. Well, I noticed that. I don't know at what point it went color. I don't know if that was kind of when you were on staff there, but and the color was fine. I mean, if I would have seen it in color to begin with, I would have probably been okay with it. But it just seemed weird to me because I always read it in black and white and grayscale. It
was one of those things they just kind of had to do. It's like black and white movies. Kids,
right? Yeah.
Black and white movies.
Yeah.
They started taking ads after I was there, but I remember they were talking about it.
Yeah.
Happy.
It doesn't surprise me, but I know Bill Gaines had said before that he never wanted to run ads. But I don't know how you do a magazine without ads, to be perfectly honest. Especially, I don't know how you do a magazine at all.
It made money. Without ads, it made money.
Yeah.
But as times go on, you have to, you got to roll with the times. And when the old staff was finally killed off, the new staff, it's not that they did anything wrong or did anything less than spectacular. It's just they lost the nostalgia reader, and the younger generation didn't care.
Right.
Why spend $5.99 on a magazine when you can look at memes for free and get a laugh? And it's instant. We worked 6 months behind when I was there. I thought I heard that they had a 2-month lead in with the new magazine. But even that, really should be on the web.
So yeah. Or as an app or something. It just seems like this, and I don't know if there's any plans for anything like this, or obviously there's got to be some sort of future for Mad just because the name alone and everything. And I don't know, it just seems like whether it's an ad or, I guess they don't really have, from what I hear, they don't have much of any kind of a web presence or any online presence. But it seems like all the content.
Website, but I would do it differently myself, actually. Yeah. And they got a website very late. When I was there in 95, I was really pitching them a website. And finally, DC Comics did give them a page attached to the DC Comics page, but too little, too late.
Yeah. It just seems like all just the layout and just the way the magazine's presented, it just seems like it would naturally work in other mediums. I know at one time they did a children's show, not a children's show. I think it was on Nickelodeon or whatever.
Yeah, on Cartoon Network.
And it was. When I first heard about Mad TV, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. And then when I saw it was just a sketch comedy show, I was like, well, what's mad about this? But the children's show, obviously it skewed for a lot younger than I was, but it seemed like they were trying to do some of the similar, they had Spy vs. Spy, and they had, the parodies, and they had different things like that. It kind of seemed like that.
Very well, I had heard.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there was Mad Kids, which they came out with. And
I don't remember that. Huh, interesting.
Not many people do.
Yeah.
When the new Mad in 96 was coming out, a lot of people said, don't mess with the magazine, make another one. You want an urban hip hop.
Right. Yeah.
Call it Matter or call it whatever, but don't touch the magazine. And then a lot of people did complain that the magazine was getting a little too edgy for younger kids. And that's when I guess they came out with Mad Kids. But again, sales just didn't support it.
Interesting. So how long did this sort of experiment go? This new Mad.
Well, the yellow border presented a lot of problems. Mostly because people did not, without that little bit of art at the top on the newsstand, people would see the yellow border and like just go, I've got that one already or whatever.
Yeah, yellow border seems very weird to go with seeing that's kind of National Geographic's thing.
It was called an homage to the old Mad.
Oh, okay.
Which had a border. It was a last minute desperation to make it look different enough that the $1.5 million Warner Brothers was spending to promote this wouldn't just be considered thrown out the window. It's like the italicized logo. There's very few people who actually know the secret behind that.
Fill us in.
Well, we had to design a new logo. One of my favorites was kind of an homage to the original logo.
Yeah, that's kind of, I think when they just recently relaunched it, I think they went back to something very similar to the original logo.
Very similar. Mine was a little more computery, high-techy, but it was beautiful. I mean, I have some stuff somewhere on. There's a Mad group on Facebook. I think I have some there. Anyway, after going through like 4 dozen logos, the DC exec says, I want something that shows speed.
Oh.
Anyway, so she's like, here, we'll do italicize the logo. And we had to do like 12 different angles. It's like, is this too far? Is this not whatever? The funny thing about it is we had used an italicized logo on probably 2 issues that year because we play around with the logo. So this exec obviously had never seen the magazine. If they thought that the italicized logo was new and fresh and everything, it was just another laugh the staff had at how stupid this thing was.
So I have a weird question. It's not necessarily on topic.
You came to the right place.
Yeah. So you transition from designing to art direction, and of a pretty large group of like freelancers and then in-house staff, and then lasted for quite a while as an art director, because that's a hard span to kind of like, it's a hard position to hold.
Yeah, so Sam was there for like 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
I think he was there longer than John Putnam, one of the original guys. So
yeah.
But still, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, anyhow, so my point was just like out of curiosity, like, do you have any lessons you kind of learned through art direction, like that are things like kind of hard learned early on that you kind of implemented later? Just kind of like more of like, once you were in that role at the helm, like what did you take away from that? Like, what would you recommend for anybody in that position or like approaching a position like that?
Well, again, it was more of a Forrest Gump kind of thing, being in the right place at the right time. As any designer, artist knows, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to tell you how to make it better. And you don't always get to do what you want to do. Usually their art department is the redheaded stepchild of the publication or whatever. So you'll have people come by, well, this should be this. Why don't we try this? Why don't we do that? If you're to be a great designer, great art director, you have to take the worst suggestions and still make the product look great.
Yeah.
It is possible. You just have to know how to do it. And that's the challenge of design or illustration.
Yeah. That's awesome.
You know, when someone says, well, I want this baseball player and he's hitting a home run and he's running around the bases, but he's looking at the person looking at the cover and there's someone ready to catch the ball. And, you know, it's like, so which one of these do you want? He's hitting the ball or he's running. Or
so you want a comic strip. You want sequential art.
Sequential one picture. So you got to figure out, how do I make it look the best? How do I not embarrass myself?
Yeah, that's actually really good tip. Anything on like leading kind of a rowdy group like that? Like, because I'd imagine that would have its own challenges.
You have to know how to play to people's strengths.
Nice.
And what to watch out for. Like, don't drink the coffee. No, you know, look, everybody was really very professional. We had a great time because it was a humor magazine. And yes, I had to do a little moving around in terms of what people did. First of all, because they had just gotten computers. I mean, and people don't realize that 20 years ago, a lot of people didn't even have emails.
Yeah.
And again, that's one of the Forrest Gump reasons. I knew the computer and I knew how to do all this stuff. I mean, we changed the production to completely digital, and I had to do it actually on the sly. And if it had gone wrong, I would have been really fired. But I did half the magazine digitally, working that out with the printer. And when we did our debriefing, so to speak, of the magazine, we'd take off our briefs. The editors, John and Nick, would say, well, why does this page look so good and this looks so crappy? And that's when I was like, well, this one's digital and this one is shot, you know, the traditional.
Which one was the crappy one?
So they were like, well, okay, you know, but we still had to like print out the things and put it. We had these mad paste up boards. And Nick Meglin always said, well, I like the weight of the board in my hand. Now, some people say that I offered to put something else in his hand, but I don't actually remember doing that. But what we would do is we would take the printouts and glue and tape them onto a board so Nick could hold the board in his hand. There's always a solution. Make everybody happy.
I love it.
Yeah, I actually, I've never, you know, I never got to, well, I sort of did, and I'll get into that, but like, I always wanted to, I always wanted to be in the pages of Mad, and I never got to be in the pages of Mad, but one thing I did get to do, which was kind of interesting, and sometimes I forget that I actually did this, but I used to do work for Warner Brothers studio stores back. They used to, if anyone remembers, way back in the day, Warner Brothers had these elaborate stores in the malls with these. Yep. You know, I did a lot of Looney Tunes stuff. I mean, they had these crazy like Looney Tunes scenes, like, I mean, literally, and it was even outside of the mall. I mean, even outside of the store, there was one that was just this big pirate ship with like Yosemite Sam and, you know, Bugs Bunny fighting on this big pirate ship, and it was suspended from the ceiling in between like the two stories of the mall. And I mean, just these crazy scenes. So we designed all that kind of stuff, but I got to actually, and this is what I was told, I don't know if this is true, but I did the turnaround for Alfred E. Newman, because what I was told was prior to that, there was never any profile drawn of Alfred E. Newman, and they needed to create a three-dimensional, like one of these, you know.
Oh, the one where he's like this?
Yeah. I think that was it. So I got to kind of draw from the back and the side and obviously the front, which already existed.
So that was you.
I guess. I don't remember drawing like this. I just remember drawing the head. So I don't know, maybe they just figured they could do that themselves or whatever.
I think they put it in the style guide. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so I actually, from what I'm told, I was told I was the first person that would design the profile of Alfred E. Newman. I don't know if that's true or not, or if they just didn't, maybe somebody else did and they didn't have that on hand, but they needed it. But anyway, that was.
You may have. The funny thing about Alfred E. Newman, and listen to this, fans, go on the internet, go on Google, get a picture of Alfred E. Newman, and then flop it. He looks completely insane. So yeah, so kudos to you because he's very hard to draw. There was a lot of people.
One thing I heard recently was that that he started off as like a public domain character, and then but he didn't have a name, so they attached a name to it, and I guess that meant they owned him. Have you heard that?
Yeah, well, what they used was the old model. You can find it where it's a "What Me Worry." I was doctor, dentist, something or the other. I think it was one of the originals. But yeah, he was clip art. Gee, imagine if they used the pizza guy going like this. Luigi Van Numeno. That would have been fun, actually. That's more like the cracked mascot then.
Right, yeah. Yeah, we had somebody in the chat that said it maybe. I think they said something like maybe sacrilege, but I used to read crack. But I've got some cracked sprinkled in.
No, I was friends with the cracked guys when I was at Mad. They did some very edgy stuff.
Yeah, and they did kind of. I mean, they went under a long time ago, but they transitioned to something else. I mean,
into a website of clickbait. Yeah,
and I still got their podcast. I mean, their podcast is pretty interesting. I think they recently changed ownerships, and I don't know if it's as good as it used to be, but it's nothing like the magazine. I mean, it's only like in name only, but basically they just talk about weird stuff it's really more educational than anything, just like weird things that you didn't know about this or whatever. But
the guy who owned Cracked sold it to the people who published the World Weekly News down in Florida.
Okay.
They always come from Florida, I guess.
No strange news from Florida.
Yeah, I know. Florida.
I've heard an interesting thing about that, but go ahead, Jonathan.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that a few of the guys on staff had gone down there because I'd always pick up the World Weekly News when I was at the supermarket. I was like, oh, there's so-and-so, as the guy with the dishes that never get washed and whatever.
That's got to be just I imagine you could mine a lot of material just from that magazine alone.
Oh, it was, well, one of the things I liked at Mad is we'd always use people from Mad and DC and their relatives for the pictures of the people in, the ads and stuff. The only one we didn't was it was a Smirnoff ad on the back cover, and it shows this large framed woman with lots of makeup and all. And she's smiling, and you see just from the person's view, he's holding it was Doers. He's holding out saying, you've had enough where she's starting to look pretty good. And we had to hire a model for that because we didn't want to say we're looking for someone who's fat and ugly. And after it came out, there were women who said, I would have done it.
Well, yeah, because they can't. I always wonder about that with certain casting.
You're too attractive. We couldn't use you.
Yeah, I always wondered about that with certain casting because obviously they have to put in the casting call that they're looking for somebody that's supposed to be ugly in this thing, but and sometimes it's with makeup or whatever. But
I'd go around the office and just take pictures of people. I'd just be like, okay. There was one where Irving Schild, who was the main photographer, I think the only photographer. We took a couple of people and just walked down the street till we found like a brownstone with a stoop, and we took photos there. It was not high budget.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think I've heard this similar things about the Onion, where like a lot of the people that are like area man is actually somebody on staff or somebody's kids or whatever.
And then people would fight. Why didn't you ask me to do this?
So you had mentioned some of the people that you kind of had interesting people that you had like through the offices and everything like that. And I know I was looking at I've got this Mad Star Wars collection, and it's got a forward by George Lucas talking about how big of a fan he was. So I mean, there's so many people that were really influenced by Mad. I mean, obviously we talked about myself and Josh, but people that actually have done amazing things that were influenced by Mad. So you had mentioned something about some of the just people that you saw come in through there or whatever.
People would come by. There was a radio link in the building that we were in, and the guy was a big Mad fan. So like if somebody in New York had to interview for someplace in California or whatever, they'd go to this radio link. And it said Mad downstairs. So I guess a lot of people say, oh, is Mad downstairs? He'd go, oh, yeah, I know the art director here, go down and ask for him. And we had a lot of people come through. But my favorite, again, with Lillian, the den mother of the front desk, calls me in the art department and says, Alex Coogan is here to see you. And I figured it was someone wanted to show me a portfolio. So I go out, and who's there but Alice Cooper? And I'm just like, oh, Alex Coogan, oh, Lillian. So, we didn't worthy.
I figured it was probably one of those guys that probably actually legally changed his name and went by it. But he still goes by his real name then, I guess.
She got it wrong.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. I thought maybe that was Alex.
No, she got that wrong.
Okay, I see now. I totally missed the joke then.
Yeah, that was the joke.
Because I live in Arizona and Alice is from here, and I've never heard of him referred to by anyone other than Alice Cooper. So
I've eaten in his restaurant. I was hoping I'd see him because we gave him the tour. We gave him a T-shirt. He was playing Jones Beach, concert Jones Beach that weekend. And he came with his entourage. He goes, make sure these guys get backstage passes. And we're like, wow, never got them.
Yeah. Well, for anyone that doesn't know, the way Jonathan and I met is Jonathan was living in Arizona, and we were doing this thing called West Side Creatives, where it was just like, and I probably should start that again because it eventually kind of fell apart because everyone had to get like day jobs or like full-time jobs. This is around when the economy started to tank and everything. So it's like, I need to get a full-time job or whatever. And now I'm back to freelancing. So maybe I should try to start that.
We were day drinking a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of like that, but it was just kind of like an artist meetup and mostly people on the west side of Phoenix, which wasn't, it seemed like a lot of everyone else in the creative field were more central or east side. So we kind of started this group and everything. But so that's where I met Jonathan. But I don't know if you know this, but the Cooperstown actually closed down. That was Alice Cooper's restaurant. We went there. I went there one day. We went there after a concert or something. It just wasn't open anymore. So yeah, it's no longer open. So
that's what he gets for not giving me the backstage pass.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If Alice Cooper just by chance stumbles upon this, you owe this man tickets.
I'm tweeting it out to his account. Anyway, but no, nice guy. He was very accommodating. Took a picture for us and everything.
Yeah, it seems like I maybe there's a picture. Did he take a picture with you? Maybe it's up on it was up on the wall at Cooperstown because he's got a lot of pictures up there. But
it could be. It is. It's in an issue. He's with the Alfred statue from Up the Academy.
Yeah, it was probably up there, I would imagine. But yeah, unfortunately, like I said, it's not there anymore. So
nothing lasts forever.
Yeah, it was kind of a bummer. That was kind of a cool place to hang out at.
So, like, when you were working, like, were you in Los Angeles at all, or it was all while it was based in?
No, it was all New York.
Got it. Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
One of the problems is when DC was moved out to Burbank, the offices of DC, which were at 1700 Broadway, just moved everybody to Burbank. The Mad Guys refused to go, and they kept them in a small office at same building that Elaine works in on Seinfeld.
No way.
Yeah, they showed the front of it. It's a Warner Brothers building.
Oh.
And they moved them, I think, into that building. And again, I think someone just decided, hey, we're going to do it new and fresh and get rid of everyone. I just hope that Warner Brothers took care of the staff because they've been there forever. And the longer you work at MAD, the more unemployable you are anywhere else.
Yeah, I think that goes for, that's just... It's funny. So I'm in
like Michael Keaton.
Yeah, but although now he's got a thing, but it's
a bad joke. All right, I love Michael Keaton, but the Batman thing.
But that's true. I mean, like I'm a member of the LANCS, so there's a lot of like old Mad creators in that, and then like some of the guys involved in the new one too. And like
Bill Morrison, then.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I don't know him. I could just kind of go to the NCS meetings and stuff. It's funny though. He was my buddy worked at Bongo, and so he was his old boss. So I might have to mention that at some point. But it's like the thing that I gather from it is there was just so much excitement from like all the cartoonists there about Mad kind of coming back and like returning and kind of bringing along a lot of the originals, and it's just it's so sad to see it fall like it. I always wonder how much corporate screwed it. Like whenever I hear that kind of thing, I'm like,
from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, because
that moved from Madison Avenue into the 1700 with DC Comics. That was the beginning of the end. They said that they were going to leave us alone, but they didn't.
Yeah.
And this started back when you were there, even?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, Gaines had sold, I think it was 92. He had sold it to Warner Brothers.
Okay.
But they stayed in their office, and then they moved us. I started working there, I don't know, a few months before they had us move out of Madison Avenue.
That's interesting, because they must have just acquired Mad right before I did that Alfred E. Newman thing, because I mean, I started working professionally probably around 92, and that was my first job for an architectural firm doing all that stuff. And yeah, so it must have been right around that time they must have just acquired Mad. I didn't realize that. I thought maybe they owned them before that.
They may have. I may not be sure of the dates. But the 80s were tough on me. Tough on all of us. Yeah, it was just chipped away at little by little. And, and to be fair, of course, society changed and the internet came in and more immediate and free and whatever.
Yeah, because a lot of that style of humor is still around. It's just, it's other people doing it on the web and everything. And I mean, that's why I said there's so many people influenced by Mad that are, doing similar stuff. But
it's a new generation doing it in a different way.
Yeah, I just, do you see any future? What future do you see for Mad now that they've stopped publication? Do you see anything other? I mean, they said that they're going to continue doing collections, and I imagine that, in some way, shape, or form that'll continue to happen. But beyond that, what do you think?
Hard to say, because corporate decisions change.
Yeah.
As it stands now, basically, I think issue number 9 is the last one on the newsstands. Issue number 10 is the last fresh material, but that'll only be available in comic shops and by subscriptions. And then after that, they're going to fill all the subscriptions. And there's some people who have 3 years worth of subscriptions, so I'd say they're going to expect a check, but they're going to do just reprints with a new cover.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That you can have basically 2 people doing. And I think that I had heard that they kept 2 people to keep that going.
Right.
They said they would do an annual issue.
Yeah. And so you said that Mad owns all the different titles or whatever within Mad. So those freelancers can't go and continue to do that somewhere else, I take it?
No.
They're on their own?
I mean, they can, draw. Mort Drucker, my ex-wife, was his agent for a while. Now, Mort did, he was always doing the movie thing.
Right, yeah.
On covers, but Mort made his money through advertising art.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And Jack Davis, too.
Yep.
But who's left to go on of the dinosaurs? You've got Sergio.
Yeah. Well, Sergio's always had his own properties that grew, and he does all right stuff.
So I'm not worried about Sergio. The man's prolific.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Al Jaffe at 89.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
is he still was he still doing the full covers to the very end and everything?
They cut the number, I think, though. And that was another problem, and that's something that freelancers have to watch out for. When we went to 12 issues a year, it was a financial windfall for all of the freelancers, because now it was 12 issues.
Yeah.
Even the covers of super specials, a lot of times they were new covers. So people were getting a lot of work and a lot of money. Tom Richmond, who is, I guess you would say, the more Drucker replacement, had said something on his page. He was talking about Mad, and he said something about they cut everyone's salaries or page fees in half. I mean, that sucks.
Yeah.
Plus, of course, you know, it was coming out quarterly, then it went to 6 times a year. I think now it's 8 times a year. Now it's going to be 1 time a year, maybe. I really feel for the freelancers, because so many of them really counted on Mad for a good chunk of their income.
Yeah.
And outlets for that kind of, for cartooning, are just shrinking, you know. I'll be a political cartoonist.
We've got a friend of the show who's been on a number of times, Vincent DePorter, who was drawing SpongeBob comics for a while, and basically at that point, you know, they had sold SpongeBob to Nickelodeon, and Hillenberg was just continuing to do the comics basically on his own, and then when he passed away, that was just the end of it. So it was like, it was just all of a sudden that was the end of that. So.
I think a Hillenburger is what they serve at the White House to sports teams.
It's Hillenberg, I think.
Yeah,
but
they serve that too. I don't know.
but yeah. I mean, it's, you know, it's like, you know, we all do comics here, but it's like I keep telling people, you know, just don't worry so much about Marvel and DC. I know there's a lot of prestige attached to that, but just do your own thing. And now with Kickstarter and all these other things, I mean, you're probably better off like trying to do it yourself, to be honest, and own the stuff.
And you know, the internet is perfect for that.
Yeah.
You know, do you want to go through printing and mailing when you can put it on a pay-to-view internet site?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
For cartoonists, there are actually, I mean, look at the oatmeal. There's a lot of opportunities, but you have to make your own opportunity.
Yeah.
And you got to work hard at it to get enough followers, and you know, you become Bat Dad and you buy a real nice house. You know?
Yeah. But even with print, I mean, there's so many print options out there. I mean, print on demand, where you don't need like a 2,000 print run. You can print one, or I mean, I don't know if you can. I know at one point, like, you go through a company like Kaboom and just print one copy if you wanted. But I would say, like, if you wanted to do a 25 print run, you could do it. And it's like, I mean, it's a little pricier, but that's what I do. You know, I get 25 at a time or 50 at a time. And once I get to the point where, you know, I want to like collect everything, I can get a larger print run and do it instead of print on demand. I can do it as, you know, offset printing and get the cost down. But there's just so many different options out there. So,
well, you know, the comic book movie Chasing Amy, she has these parties every month where they stuff her comic book into envelopes to mail them out.
Right.
You know, she has a small run, whatever. Anyway, she prints them, and then she and her friends sit there and put them in envelopes and mail them out.
Yeah, I did that with my Kickstarter.
That's something to do too. I have no friends, so I don't do it.
Well, I had a kid that's you know, a fan or a friend now that he said, if you need any help, just let me know. He came over. I gave him some books and some art, and he helped me fulfill that thing. And I don't know if I could have without him. So that's awesome. But you know, just building communities online, it's really amazing. You know, so.
Oh, kids are great. You can beat them and whatever. Well, that's why we're for Eisner and Kurtzman, you know, Kurtzman, of course, was very kind to me. I got mad at Will Eisner. I always, my biggest regret is I got really mad and had an argument and stormed out. And to his credit, he always spoke very kindly of me to other people. And as his student, I guess he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and he was very encouraging. And I wrote a terrific obituary for him. I don't remember where it appeared, but you know, it was just, he was such a gentleman, to speak so highly of me after I'd gotten so mad at him.
And wow.
That I never made up with him.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, I mean, obviously as comic book artists, we're huge fans of Eisner, and and like you said, just the people that you've mentioned. I mean, it's just like, probably Josh more than me, because he's more his influence is a little more prestige. I think Josh is more of a serious cartoonist, I think, than I am. But and not that, I mean, we're talking humor and everything, but I'm just.
I know he won't stop working. Look at that.
Oh yeah. You should see. I mean, his stuff is just like, and the pages he draws, like, I don't know, these huge pages. I went over to visit him in person. He's out in California, and when I saw those pages in person, I was like, wow, this is insane, but it's awesome. And like, everything's by hand. He doesn't really, I mean, you do stuff digitally, right? But the finished work is all.
Yeah, I just use a lot of sheets,
even the lettering and everything. So yeah, it's beautiful stuff. And he's got what, 4 or 5 more pages?
Yeah, about 4 pages till I'm done. And then like it is interesting though, because like all the guys you're mentioning are huge heroes of mine. And like, this is something something I've noticed is like, everyone I know who works for Disney, everyone I know who works for like these big companies and stuff, like whenever I meet them, all they want to talk about is their project that they're developing outside of corporate screwing it up. And so like, to me, like that,
they know they've signed that away to corporate.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's part of the gig. Like I'm an art director. It's like everything I create for the company I work for is theirs. And like, that's okay. That's part of the contract,
Anything you create, period, belongs to them, even in your own apartment.
100%.
That's something that the listeners have to know. You sign up with someone, it's all theirs.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, so I know, like, and I've seen contracts like that, and I make it clear that, like, I work on my own stuff on the side, and that, this is totally separate. I assume that's a deal you have, Josh, like your comic book.
Oh yeah. Because
what you're talking about, Jonathan? Because I mean, I know I definitely.
Well, I think what he's saying is like anything you're making, like it depends on who you're with the contract with,
right?
If it's exclusive or not, but generally, like there's this notorious case among animators of like these projects that were developed during lunches at Disney that Disney then just was like, we own those, and they're like, but it was lunch, like but it's like on
Disney
the premises.
It's
yeah.
If you do it in the office, it's one thing, but there are some contracts where, like I say, if you're doing it at home and you're employed by Warner Brothers, Disney, it belongs to them.
Yeah.
When I worked at Hallmark, we had to list whatever projects we were working on when we got hired so that it would be excused.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing is like the majority, like pretty much according to my contract, it's all just what I do on the premises. However, there are certain things like, in California, if you're under salary, like when you speak, you're a representative of your company and stuff like that, that kind of like restricts like certain things you can do. But like what I find, I guess the crux of what I was saying is like all these people are developing their own things, and that's kind of the thing they want to talk about. Even guys who've like directed Disney films and stuff, they want to talk about like the thing they did outside of Disney, and they're proud of what they did at Disney. But it's like, to me, that that's kind of the goal. And I think like I think you're missing out. To me, I feel like cartoonists or artists are missing out if they're not developing that personal stuff, because like it's just like it's the only, at least for me, it's the only work I feel ownership of, like full ownership of, is like the stuff that I'm just completely directing, which might be totally silly, but it's like
no, not at all. Look, if you're creative, you want to be creative, you want to do things, you have ideas, things that corporate would never approve of.
Yeah.
I was constantly pitching ideas to Mad. The most famous was the Alfred E. Newman yarmulke. I designed it. Someone came in and saw it on my computer, and they're like, "What is that?" And I said, "The Alfred E. Newman yarmulke." and they're like, "I want 24 of them." And then people kept coming into my office going, "What? I hear about this yarmulke. I want to buy some. I want to buy some." even the president of DC wanted to buy one for her father, and they decided not to go with it because it was too religious. Alfred is non-religious.
Right. I wasn't sure. At first, I wasn't sure if it was a yarmulke that Alfred E. Newman would wear, or a yarmulke with a picture of him on
No,
it.
it had Alfred on it, and it said "What me worrying" like a Hebrew type. It was
that's good.
Beautiful. It just but there are ideas like that. Same thing for Hallmark, and even Mad. I did a lot of digital stuff, trying to get them into the websites. I made Mad folders and icons that you could use on your pre-OS 10 thing, and they're like, well, if we can't make money from it, why would we put it on the website? And I kept saying, well, to drive traffic. It's just one of those freebies. They said no. I ended up accidentally putting it on the internet. They're no good now after OS 9, but they made the rounds.
That's awesome.
So you're creative. You just gotta keep creating. That's all.
Yeah.
Something's not going anywhere. Put it on a shelf and wait. It'll come back.
So, I know that recently they did a documentary about. No, it wasn't. I don't know if it was a documentary or a bio flick about National Lampoons.
Mm-hmm.
And
the movie on Netflix.
Yeah. Do you know more about like the real story of that's or is that because I'm just curious with
another teacher of mine, Peter Kleinman, was the art director at Lampoon for a long time.
Right.
So I'd go and visit him, and I'd see these guys and all, and Hollywood takes it a little too dramatic, but I love all the stuff coming out about Mad now. Like Mad was the liberal Jewish, and National Lampoon was the conservative wasps from Harvard.
So I was just curious. The reason why I brought that up because if they do a Mad documentary or bio flick, and if it's assuming that if they decide to go all the way into the 80s and 90s, who would you want to play you?
That's a good question. I mean, not Tom Cruise. It'd have to be someone a little crazy.
Not Tom Cruise, but somebody a little crazy.
Well, not Tom Cruise crazy.
Just a little crazy.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Who looks like me and all. I don't know. You stumped me. No idea.
But, I would imagine that's going to happen. I would think it would have to happen. I mean, it's just. I mean, there's so many. Well, the other thing is like I don't know, man. It seems like artists are so like underrepresented. I mean, there's all these reality shows and stuff and everything from people who like bake stuff or whatever, and these are all huge, but it's just there's not too many things like that about artists. So I don't know. As much as I would love to, I'm always thinking, I would love for somebody to do like a biopic about the whole seduction of the innocent with Frederick Wortham and all that whole thing. But I don't know I'm not sure if that's just artists that would be interested in that or whatever. But there's so many. With Mad, there's just so many of my like artistic heroes and stuff. I would like to know a little more about all that, but I'm not sure. If the masses would be into that or not. I don't know.
They were just very talented, regular guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Mort Drucker, he was the most talented and most humble man I've ever met.
Really?
And that goes for all of them. I mean, sure, George Woodbridge would sometimes get into it with Tom Niskowski in the art department. Tom was very liberal and George Woodbridge was not. So there was a couple times I had to step between them. But George Woodbridge, I actually had known before I had gotten to the magazine. I knew him when I was a kid. They were all just so terrific. But time goes on, and it was a closed shop with all those guys. You could not get in. And when we were doing the new Mad, we were trying to introduce new people. B.K. Taylor was doing a feature like Dave Berg's, and they were going to do, one issue Dave Berg, one issue B.K. Taylor, and then maybe they were going to use other people for that kind of thing. Now Mad, Sergio, Sergio and Al Jaffe are it.
Yeah.
And so everyone else is new, which is great. It just gives everybody a chance to be mad, and it's a shame that it's kind of come to an end, maybe.
So do they do like, again, because it's been part of the reason why, Matt probably went under one of the reasons is because like I haven't bought it. Well, actually that's not true. I bought that number one just because like, oh, it's sort of a nostalgic thing. But
never be mad, shoplift it.
But yeah, so if they own all the titles and everything, so were they still doing like the lighter side of without like Berg, or were they? Or
no,
okay.
No. When he passed away, actually, it was very funny. A few years after he passed away, Uncle Dave, great man. He was very sensitive about his work.
Yeah.
And at one point, Hustler, I don't remember when, came out with a spoof of Mad.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did to Dave Berg. Oh my God. It was filthy. So they're trying to keep it from Dave because he would have gotten very upset. But a few years after he passed away, they did the darker side of the lighter side, which was hilarious, changing his copy with his art. And he wouldn't have liked it, but it was great.
Yeah. Interesting. So
yeah. Dave was actually always pretty much number one in reader, what they loved about the magazine.
Yeah, I remember reading that and liking it, but I'm sure so much of that went over my head when I was reading Mad Magazine. It's just kind of, I think there was a lot of that stuff. It's like, again, it was kind of like the feeling like, should I be reading this, or like?
That was part of its charm early.
Yeah, and it really just spoofed everything. From everything from politics to entertainment to everything. It was just like, and it didn't matter, who you were, who the president at the time was, or whatever. It's just like rip on everyone. I know I've heard people say recently, like, oh, it got too political, but it's not that way.
I've seen so much of that. It was a liberal magazine, good riddance. It made fun of everybody.
Yeah.
But let's face it, Donald Trump certainly has a wealth of material.
Yeah. He does not like the parodies. Does not like. He wants to open up the libel laws and get rid of some of the free speech. It sounds like so.
And the funny thing is, and it's always the famous one. I think it was Carson who asked Michael J. Fox, "How did he know he made it?" And he said, "When I appeared on the cover of Mad Magazine."
Right.
And people, as art director, we'd make fun of, like, I remember it was Absolute. We did one issue that had like 3 or 4 Absolute ads, and the CEO himself called me. Well, I guess his assistant called me, and then he got on the phone. He wanted to buy the original art, and he was just, I can't. Oh, I love it. I want to own the art. So even people he made fun of were really happy about it.
Yeah.
They had made it into Mad Magazine. Some people, I guess, not so much.
Yeah. So I think that was one of the things you mentioned. We're getting close to time, but you did mention just people that love being spoofs. So like, what are some of those like stories or people that actually, like you mentioned Michael J. Fox? There
was always just a lot of people who wanted to buy the cover art if they appeared on the cover.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So one really quick question regarding that, like, I was just talking to a friend about this because I have a 5-year-old, and I'm I'm freaked out for him getting into his teens because there's like literally no music I'm afraid of him getting into. And I'm like, what kind of teenage years are there when there's no music in popular culture that's threatening? Like,
you'll hate whatever they listen to.
Yeah, probably. I guess
my kids are 22 and 20, and I hate their music.
Yeah, I can understand that. I guess what I was getting at is like it feels like Mad had teeth, even when it wasn't going like super risque. It had a period of time, like even that lasted to like when I was younger. I still remember, I had a fairly conservative family, and they were like, "Do not like pick up that magazine," which of course made me pick up the magazine. So I'm wondering if, do you think Mad still has that, like, because I think that was a part of the sale as well, was that it was really dangerous, like in a really subversive kind of awesome way.
Oh, I was a bad boy for reading Mad.
Yeah.
My mother threw out all my Mads at one point. She said that it was going to affect me negatively, which is why I read it.
That's why I'm always surprised that my dad told me about Mad, but
my parents threw it out. When I got the job, I called my mother and said, "Ha ha, fuck you! I got every issue." It's a part of American history. It's just nothing lasts. It's really a shame. The funny thing about it is, before Mad, I worked at High Times. They're still going.
Well, yeah, that's even bigger now. But
I know that's what you see. When I worked for High Times,
you could always roll it up and smoke it, I guess.
You had to keep it really quiet, and there was always stories about someone breaking in and stealing the files of all the contributors and all. And now it's like Vanity Fair.
Yeah, that's fascinating, man.
So,
but what a cool thing to kind of be able to have that as your day job. That's pretty rad to be able to.
Yeah, well, not a lot got done there. It's like, well, we put out a page today.
Yeah. So what with deadlines and stuff like that? What was your kind of method for like keeping your cool if things were kind of running slow, or somebody like you said, like I've been in that position too, where I hire a freelancer who seems really competent, and then they just blow a deadline, and I'm like, oh great, now I have to be here till 2 a.m. like. And
that's what I did.
Yeah.
Or they do the wrong size and I have to redo the layout.
Yeah.
There was one artist who I had to keep bugging her about deadlines, and she went online onto a chat room and really did a number on me. And I had a good system for keeping everything. I'd worked in publishing before Mad as a designer, so I knew the way things worked. And we worked out some systems and things moved. They let me hire an assistant, so there was one extra person to help with, from 8 issues to 12. And like I say, I had said before, it was surprising how many real professionals screwed up.
Yeah.
And you just, if it's something that is so time sensitive, yeah, it's a real pain.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff we could go, okay, fine, rework it, or, we'll put something else because we had other stuff in stock.
Yeah.
It worked out. I never missed a deadline.
Yeah. That's impressive.
What percentage of the magazine was like either new artists, new writers and artists versus the continuing, the stuff we usually expect?
It changed very slowly over the 90s because, Jack Davis ended up retiring, basically. And he said the magazine was getting a little raunchy for him. You know, he was a Sunday school teacher, so, you know, you had people dying off.
That's
but it was
interesting
really,
about
the new Mad in '96 was really, I think, the first time that we brought a lot of new people in.
Okay, so yeah.
And like I say, as people outaged their abilities to work or just didn't want to or died, new people came in. The new replaced the old.
Yeah.
You know, look at some of the issues now. It's all new people, really fantastic people. Actually, a guy I worked at Hallmark with, Kerry Callan, was doing a lot of their superhero stuff for the new Mad. Really terrific, hilarious stuff. I feel bad for Kerry that now it's.
Yeah, a couple guys I know who do New Yorker stuff. Like we're doing Mad as well, just one panel strips, which have always scared the shit out of me. Just executing because you really have to be good at a bit to just sell it in one line. Like to me, that's my biggest weakness.
It's tough.
Yeah, I that's a mystery to me. I envy people who can do it. But yeah, like all of them, like I said, just a lot of cartoonists were very excited because it was another revenue stream in this really tough field, you know, especially freelancers. It's just but I do think it's cool. Like in a weird way, I've said this on here before, but it's like anybody who's managing to eke out a living doing art or graphic design is kind of cheating the system anyway. And so that's kind of badass if you can get away with with doing that instead of laying brick or something. Like for as long as we can get away with it, I feel like that's worthwhile. But to also be eking out a living doing it and also being able to kind of like make people laugh and like kind of challenge what's out there and be a little subversive, like that's like that's something to be proud of, you know. That's really amazing.
It has a proud history. Well, it's Mad, so I don't know how proud, but it was definitely, it shook up America.
Yeah.
You know, it shook up the 50s and the 60s, 70s. And
67-year run.
67 years, I know.
Not too bad. Not too bad.
You know,
but it's just cool that that you got to be a part of it and everything. I mean, that's something that, like I said, even from a kid, that I would have loved to at least done for a little bit. But yeah, but it's cool. But at least I got to do a little bit with the Alfred E. Newman thing.
Well, they got 67 years of back material.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
You know.
I mean, there's no shortage of that, and especially for anyone that may be tuning in that might not be that familiar with Mad. Yeah, I mean,
who's not familiar with Mad? Come on.
Well, yeah, I don't know. We don't have a lot of super young people, but you never know. But I mean,
no, it's true. A lot of people kept saying, "Oh, do they still publish?"
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's all great stuff. I mean, I've been, it's weird. Like I said, I kind of stopped reading Mad for a little bit, and when you hear about that, you go back and you start pulling out all these issues and you look through.
There was always the nostalgia reader, went from Mad to Lampoon,
yeah,
into Playboy, then back to Mad.
Yeah,
that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Mad when we were younger, there was no internet. If they spoofed Midnight Cowboy, which was X-rated when it came, you know, as kids we're like, oh, so this is the X-rated thing. Wow.
Yeah.
You know, here's the R-rated film I couldn't see. Mm-hmm. Here's, you know, the way some of them drew women, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you
Playboy for preteens, you know.
Yeah. So, and some of the stuff probably, I imagine you go back not too far. I mean, it's probably stuff that you probably couldn't even do nowadays, I would imagine.
Tastes always change, I suppose. Blazing Saddles would never be made today.
True.
But I always liked on The Simpsons. I think it was Arnie Kogan. Jay Kogan is Arnie Kogan's son. Arnie Kogan used to write for Mad, or maybe it's Jay used to. I don't remember. But it would go into The Simpsons. You know how he ends up in Mad magazine. They get an old issue, and Milhouse goes, They really must hate that Spiro Agnew guy.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of that stuff is just so topical and everything. So
it'll be interesting to see.
Almost like a time capsule looking back, because they've got a lot of stuff from the '80s, and it's just like the stuff they were spoofing and what was going on. It's really it's almost like a history lesson, you know.
Something else will come up next. Who knows what it'll be?
Yeah. So what's next? Just out of curiosity, as we're wrapping it up and stuff, like what's next for you? Like, what are your current kind of projects or passions, or what are you kind of doing right now?
Freelancing for a while. I mean, after Mad, it was Pokemon, and then it was Hallmark. My wife was from St. Louis. She moved us to Missouri. What fun that is.
I have seen those Hallmark listings before, and I have had moments of consideration, because I'm like, hey, property values are low, like, you know. But
they laid off 2/3 of their creative department back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, we can have you back on again to talk about Hallmark when they go under.
Have me on next week. I'll help them go under.
But you know what? You mentioned R. Crumb at the top. R. Crumb did work at Hallmark briefly, didn't he? Or was that American? No, it was Hallmark. I think that was like his earliest gig before doing Raw. That
sounds familiar. That sounds familiar.
Yeah. So you're in good company having worked for them.
Just to leave you with a great story about Hallmark. My first week there, like Monday, I did. Not initiation, whatever. Anyway, it was Tuesday. I went to the licensing department where I was working, and they put out this thing. We want to do Looney Tunes cards for adults. Push the envelope. And here's me from Brooklyn, New York. My idea of pushing the envelope on adult cards was way different from Hallmark's. I literally thought that I would not last out the week, but I lasted many years. Everyone reminding me, "You're the guy who did the dirty Looney Tunes cards, and the dirty Star Wars cards, and the dirty Sesame Street cards," and I had my niche.
Yeah, it's funny. Anytime somebody says, "Yeah, we want it edgy, or we want it this," or not that. No, not that edgy, not that. I
think that was one of the problems with the new Mad. Also, I think a lot of people were saying I want edgy, but they didn't know what edgy was.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. How edgy are we talking? Like happiness, or are we talking like? Are we talking like what kind of? How far is the line here?
I sent in a couple of written pieces, which obviously aren't going to get printed, but one of them was, the How to Read Nancy thing that everyone's doing now.
Oh,
I haven't seen that. I'll have to look.
Oh, there's this resurgence of Nancy, the Nancy comic strip. There's a book called How to Read Nancy. So I did How to Read Racist Nancy. They would have these things back in the 40s, and it was brutal. Yeah. Probably a little too edgy for them. And that's the problem. How edgy do you want to get?
Yeah.
After the Chappelle show, the bar keeps getting set higher and higher for edgy and humor.
Yeah.
That's a fair point. It's a tough thing to measure, and it's one of those things. A solid sense of humor, I think.
Well, and that's the problem for freelancers is when someone goes, "I want this edgy," or "I want it, to go pow," or and you do edgy and pow, and they go, "No, this is too,"
Yeah, no, one of the worst things you can hear as a freelancer is, "Oh, just be creative, just do whatever, just make it pop." And you're like, these are vague, terrible guidelines, and you're not going to be happy with the result.
No, the worst thing is when someone says, "I know what I'll like when I see it."
Oh, that says every salesperson ever.
That's it. It's like, well, I'll bring in Kreskin so they can read your mind.
Yeah.
I'll just give me more work because I have to keep doing all kinds of stuff until you see what you like.
While you're knowing it, while you see it, am I getting paid hourly?
Well, pay me hourly and I'll work for days on end.
But I love it.
Yeah, it's a tough business, and if you can make it as a freelancer, I mean, I still freelance in design, but mostly I did a lot of writing about for freelancers. A few hundred articles out there with my pseudonym on them, and I'm not going to say which it is, but some clients wouldn't know that I'm writing why I hate marketing people.
All right, so yeah, well, let's start wrapping it up, and we'll leave it off with Jonathan in a minute. But Josh, is there anything that you want to promote or anything?
Just check out Quarterly Stories. It's a comic about faith and mental illness that I handwrite, hand letter, and hand ink, and then hopefully hand to you someday in print, maybe someday soon, because I'm about four pages away from finishing it. And then you can check out my other stuff at joshuakimball.com, and that's about it.
I can't wait. So Jonathan.
So I'll see you when Hallmark goes out of business.
Or Pokemon. I think we got a while for Pokemon.
Pokemon will forever be here. I can tell you a lot of stories about high times, though.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have to have you back on and talk about some of this, because I mean, you've got an amazing career with just a lot of the places that you worked with and everything. I'm sure, a
lot of it helps to have been in New York, because that's where the action was.
Yeah. I've never been in that position. I've always kind of lived here, and I've been able to make it work. But there's tons of stuff I think I might have missed out on if I would have moved out to New York or LA or something. So
if I can say something, if you can freelance and you're making invitations for kids' birthday parties by hand, or you're doing something for Matt or Warner Bros., whatever, as long as you're happy, as long as you're creating, as long as you're getting paid, that's what's really important.
Yeah. Well, now I'm kind of point in my life where I kind of just want to do my own stuff, more or less. I mean, I still do some freelance stuff to pay the bills, but I'm also trying to do my own thing. So, I
pay the bills.
What's that?
Pay the bills.
Yeah, that's what I do. So, is there anything you want to promote at all, Jonathan? Or I know you kind of want to keep some of your anonymity as far as where to send people to or anything like that. But
it's another thing about freelancing. Sometimes you have to make your own opportunities.
Right.
You have to make your own projects and then push them, and that's what I basically do now. I don't want to go out and have someone go, "Will you do a logo for me?" and then go through all that rigmarole. I'm at the end of my career. I mean, it's the stock market has been kind, and
that's good.
It's just you get to a point where you can't take this shit anymore.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm hoping I never get there, but I'm sure we'll. Relevant enough to keep a roof over my head and everything. So.
Yeah, everybody gets there.
Yeah.
It's just you find something creative. Maybe it's not drawing, maybe it's painting, maybe it's jewelry, whatever, but keep creating.
Yeah.
That's the key.
All right. So as far as you're on my channel, so you know where I am. The only thing I really have to promote is the Comic Maker Starter Kit. If you go to circworks.com, you can pick that up. It is free. And if it'll get you on the way to start making comics. There's digital brushes, digital page templates, fonts, everything you need for making comics. And right now I'm working on the pro version of that, which will be that one you actually have to pay for, but it's going to be like 3 times as big, and it's going to be pretty cool. So
that's what she said.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, thanks to everyone in the chat. We appreciate it. I know we got to some of the comments, but not too much. But yeah, there's, that's the way it goes sometimes. But we do appreciate that. And it seems like a lot of people in the chat just talk amongst themselves and everything anyway.
Who's saying bad things about me?
Just your son. He's talking some smack.
I figure he's that little bastard.
He said to say to you that, and I'm not going to shout it but he said, "I'm Pickle Rick." He said, "I'll know."
Oh, yeah. He wants me to go, "I'm Pickle Rick." There, you happy?
But yeah, so Jonathan, thanks for coming on. I know it was kind of short notice, but I really did want to kind of give sort of a eulogy to Matt and everything. I figured you were the perfect person to talk to about it. So
it was, or the wrong person, but good to see you again. It was my pleasure. Nice to meet you, Josh, and don't ever call me again.
Okay. All right, we'll leave it with that. So we'll see everyone next week. Oh wait, I forgot. I got the before we go. Yeah, if you want to know, we usually do this on Thursdays, but sometimes we do it on Wednesdays, and it switches back and forth from Josh's channel to my channel. But if you always want to know where we're going to be, the easiest way to do that is just subscribe to our mailing list. There's a link in the description. We don't spam you or anything like that. We just send out a little reminder about 30 minutes ahead of time, so you know when we're going to be going live, and you can join us in the chat. And with that, thanks again, Jonathan. Thanks to the chat, and we'll see everyone next week.
And if you can't find them, ICE knows where they are.
Knows where everyone is. Yes.